There was a time in history during colonial America where the government required people to be a church member in order to serve political office. They figured that would keep the dishonest men out of politics. What it actually meant, or how it actually played out, is that these dishonest men joined the church so that they would qualify for political office. So instead of purifying the government, it corrupted the church. I see the mixture of politics and religion as a negative thing for ministers. I think that pastors should avoid aligning themselves with a political party one way or the other. There are certain political issues that at times pastors need to take a position on, but those are relatively few. And the environment that we are in today is so acidic. It is so toxic. The political parties are very polarized. And with social media, there are a lot of people that have become political addicts, much like cocaine addicts. And they feed off from partisan news sources, either on talk radio or on the internet or cable TV. And they villainize each other, and it has become a very adversarial arena to participate in. Christian ministers should be above that and not get down into the dirtiness of that and try to direct people to something higher, something much more noble, and something much more beneficial in our lives. I don't believe that most preachers get involved in politics. I think most of us that try to stay away from it are rather silent. So people don't realize how many preachers are just focused on the gospel, because those that do get involved in politics become very vocal. And so we realize who these people are that are making political opinions and claiming that God supports their positions. Obviously, if a preacher aligns themselves with a political party, if that be the Republican Party or the Democrat Party or Libertarian Party or the Green Party, they're going to diminish their influence, because people that are not of that party are not going to want to listen to them. They're not going to go to their church. They're not going to look at their YouTube channel. Whatever the case is, that they're going to diminish their influence by aligning themselves with a political party. It also distracts from priorities. Okay. When a minister starts focusing on political issues, those are normally different, although somewhat related in some cases to religious issues. But oftentimes what it does is it makes the gospel priorities get less attention because they take on this political priority. It requires compromise in many cases, and there are many laws, civil laws, that require religious compromise. Now just think about it for a minute. If you say, I am a Democrat, do you honestly believe that every single thing that the Democrats stand for is biblically supported? Or if you say, I am a Republican, do you believe that every single thing that the Republican Party believes is biblically supported? Most people wouldn't go that far. But if you are going to align yourselves, or if I am going to align myself with one of these political parties, that means I am going to have to compromise some of my religious principles. And then it requires assumptions about issues that are not mentioned in the Bible. That is, in the political arena, they're going to be making laws about things that are not discussed specifically in the Bible. And then as a preacher, if I'm going to get involved in politics, that means it's like I'm getting into an area that is outside of my expertise. Okay, so that's an area that I should just avoid. Political parties flip-flop. Let's take a look at some issues. Immigration. Back in the 80s and 90s, President Reagan and Bush supported immigration. They claimed it helped business and it helped the economy. So they were Republicans and they supported immigration. Bill Clinton came along. Bill Clinton was against immigration. He believed that it hurt the working man, specifically unions, which were big supporters of the Democrat Party. So back in those days, Republicans were for immigration, Democrats were against immigration. Today, it's exactly the opposite. Democrats are for immigration, Republicans are against immigration. I don't want to debate these topics here. I'm just going through them. Deficit spending. Back in the day, Reagan, he wanted a balanced budget. The Republicans were for fiscal responsibility, and now we see that, with Trump, biggest deficits ever. Even before the pandemic came, it was runaway spending. Okay, and Republicans were saying, I don't know if the deficit is that big of an issue. But of course, now that Biden is president, Republicans are worried about the deficit again. So much flip-flopping that goes on between these parties. Supreme Court, the Biden rule. Okay, this goes back. Maybe not all my viewers here are familiar with it, but this goes back to when George Bush, the first George Bush, was president, and Joe Biden was in the Senate, and Bill Clinton was running for president, and Joe Biden said that he hopes that if there's a Supreme Court vacancy, that George Bush would not try to fill that until after the election. And so that became the Biden rule, that if there is a Supreme Court vacancy while there is a political campaign going on, that they should wait until after the election. Well, the Republicans brought this up when Hillary Clinton was running and Donald Trump were running for president, and there became a vacancy in the Supreme Court. And of course, Barack Obama was president, and he wanted to fill that vacancy. And the Republicans said, oh no, remember the Biden rule from when Biden was in the Senate? And we should not fill the vacancy until after the election. And so then the Democrats, of course, they're flip-flopping. Oh, no. That's not what Biden meant. He meant something else. So when it's favorable to the Democrats, they believe in it. When it's not, they don't. When it's favorable to the Republicans, they believe in it. When it's not, they don't. And then we see at the end of the Trump presidency, after the Republicans make the firm stand that Obama shouldn't fill that vacancy because they should wait till after the election. At the end of the Trump presidency, there becomes a vacancy on the Supreme Court, and now the exact same Republicans, I don't mean the same political party, I mean the exact same individuals, like Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, the exact same individuals that just 4 years prior to that were saying that they needed to wait until after the election to fill the vacancy. They now feel that it is very important to fill this vacancy very, 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 very quickly, rapid, like lightning fast, filling the vacancy. This is just the flip-flopping that happens in politics, because politics is not about public service. It's not about taking a stand for something. It's not about making the world a better place. Politics is all about gaining power. It's all about a fight for power. And is that something that a Christian pastor should be involved with? I've decided that for me, no. Then let's take a look at another issue, the impeachment of Clinton and Donald Trump. Now, those that were in favor of Bill Clinton being impeached for his offense were not in favor of Donald Trump. Yes, they thought Bill Clinton should be impeached for obstruction of justice, but not Donald Trump. It was, a complete flip-flop. In fact, so much that Kenneth Starr was a prosecutor of Bill Clinton, right? And he was for Clinton's impeachment, and he actually became a defender of Donald Trump. So the same guy that was saying that Clinton should be impeached was saying that Donald Trump shouldn't be impeached. Where the consistency I saw, the only consistency I saw, and I lived through both of these impeachments, The only consistency I saw was the publication Christianity Today. And, I disagree with getting involved in politics. I don't think Christianity Today should have taken a position in the Clinton impeachment nor in the Trump impeachment. Christianity Today should have steered clear of politics. But they did take a position. They favored the impeachment of Clinton and they favored the impeachment of Trump. That was very consistent. And that is something that we do not see very often in politics. Everybody's flip-flopping all the time. Now let's take a look at another issue. Class envy. Republicans have preached for a long time that the Democrats are full of class envy. The Democrats, they want to pitch the poor. They want to set the poor people, the working class people, against the rich people, the business owners and bankers and, filthy rich people that, spit money when they sleep at night. They just got so much of it they don't know what to do. And that's for a long time. They said that class envy, that is a page in the Democrat playbook. That's what they would say. And yet, look at who is using class envy now. And we see this in the latest student loan forgiveness issue. That now the Republicans, who have long time said that that Democrats are terrible for trying to set the poor working class against the rich elitists. Now, what are they doing? They're trying to pit against. They're trying to create a animosity, hard feelings, anger. They're trying to create this tension between those that didn't go to college and those that did go to college. They are stirring up class envy, which for years and years and years they have said that the Democrats are just terrible people for using this class envy tactic. And yet now they are using the exact same tactic because it's politics. It's not about taking a position on right or wrong or making the world a better place. It is about acquiring power. So you use class envy when it will help you acquire power, and you criticize class envy when it won't help you gain power. So let me share a little bit about student loans. A lot of people that I've seen that are against the forgiveness of student loans, I've seen a lot of memes on Facebook and seen some video clips on YouTube. And it just impresses me as people that don't even really understand the difference between a student loan and a typical bank loan. And they continue to compare a student loan to a bank loan. They say, hey, you got a student loan, the problem is just pay it off. Simple as that. Which, to me demonstrates an incredible amount of ignorance. And they compare it to a mortgage or a car loan. Well, this is the thing. If you don't pay your mortgage, what happens? Your house gets foreclosed. If you don't pay your car loan, what happens? Your car gets repossessed. These consequences take place. So we never have to bail, although we have bailed people out of mortgages so that they could stay in their home. But generally, we do not have to bail people out of mortgages or car loans. The banks can take care of that themselves. Well, student loans, do you know the government, if a person doesn't pay back their student loan, the government has the right, the ability to garnish their wages. That is, that their employers then have to send for a portion of their wages directly to the government. And so then the individual never has the opportunity not to pay the student loan. There are people right now collecting Social Security that still have student loans from back in the 70s and 80s. The government has not collected that money. Why hasn't the government collected that money? When the government has the ability to garnish wages, why has this person been out of college for 40 years and still not paid their student loans? Certainly a reasonable person would say a culpability, part of the culpability lies with the government. Okay. Student loans, you can't declare bankruptcy on student loans. So there's people that go bankrupt, but they can't get out of their student loans. That's much different than any other loan that we would come across. student loans have capitalized interest and the income-driven repayment plan. I don't think a lot of people that are unfamiliar, that have never taken out a student loan, or maybe they took out a student loan and they were able to pay it back right away, so they didn't get into this mess. But capitalized interest is this. You miss a payment. Okay, you're late on a payment. The company that is handling the loan for the government calls you up and says, "Hey, Mr. Johnson, I noticed that you missed your payment 2 weeks ago." And you say, "Yeah, my car broke down and it's in the shop. I'm gonna pay it next week." And the student loan says, "Oh, don't worry about it. We can just apply a deferment or forbearance on there, and it'll be taken care of. You can catch up. You can just resume payments as normal." Mr. Johnson, great. That sounds like a good idea. And then they'll say, "Mr. Johnson, in fact, if you're having difficulty, we'll just put your payments on hold for 6 months, and you can worry about it." And say, "Would that work out for you?" "Oh, yeah, that'd be fine." Now, have you ever heard of that happening with a car loan or with your bank mortgage? You're late on your mortgage, and your bank calls you and says, "Oh, Mr. Johnson, don't worry about it. We'll just give you a forbearance, and you don't have to worry about making your mortgage payment for the next 6 months." That doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen because the government doesn't allow banks to do that. Because what's going on there is the borrower is still responsible for the interest. And so all the interest that he would have been paying during that period of time gets capitalized and added to the loan. And as you know, or if you're familiar with finance, at the beginning of the loan, the interest is most. So if you have a $500 payment that you're making on a loan, at the beginning of the loan, only like $100 of that goes to the principal and $400 goes to interest. That would be on an amortization schedule. So if the bank calls and says, "Hey, don't worry, Mr. Johnson, we'll just give you a forbearance and you don't have to worry about that payment." Well, that payment, if it was $500, that means the $100 on principal, you're going to make that $100 payment later. Okay, that's not a big deal. The $400 in in interest, however, that $400 gets added to the loan. So if your loan was $20,000, now your loan is $20,400. And that has been the experience of a lot of people that had student loans. Their student loans grow. They graduated college with $10,000 of student loan debt, and now they have $50,000 of student loan debt because of the capitalized interest. The other thing is the income-driven plans. In this, the government assesses that the person, even though they have a college degree, they are not earning enough money to make the payments on the student loan. So they say, "Don't worry, this is your minimum payment. Instead of the $500 a month payment, you can make a payment of $200 a month." But the same thing is happening there. The $200 a month isn't enough to cover the interest, right? In our example that we just gave, we have a payment with $100 going to the principal and $400 going to interest. Now, if on an income-driven plan, they tell you that you only have to pay $200, that $200 goes towards the interest. So now you are not making a payment. There's $200 of interest that is not covered. That gets capitalized and added to your loan. So in the income-driven plan, every month you make your payments, every single month. Very, very loyal. You make your payments, and the balance of your loan increases every single month. I had student loans, and that's what I was involved with, was the income-driven plan. And I would make my monthly payments, and my balance would still increase. Okay. Next issue. Selective schools for deferment. Now, if you go back to college, say you have a bachelor's degree and you decide to go to get a master's degree or a doctorate, they will put your payments on hold, not even charge you interest. That's called a deference. Okay, if you get a forbearance, you don't have to pay, but you still are responsible for the interest. If you get a deferment, everything's on hold. You don't acquire interest or anything. But if the school is not approved by the Department of Education, then they're going to put you into forbearance instead of putting you into deferment. In forbearance, you're still responsible for the interest. So your loans, your loan amount, your principal, grows and grows and grows. As you are getting your master's degree or as you're getting your doctorate degree, your balance is going to grow and grow and grow. Okay? It's not in deferment, it's in forbearance. So what are these schools that are not approved? Well, a lot of the schools are in other countries. So if you travel to another country to study, the Department of Education say they don't recognize those schools, even though the schools are accredited. You can go to those schools like medical school. You could go to a medical school in Chile or someplace, and you could get a medical degree, and then you could come back here, take your tests, become a medical doctor. You could go to Mexico, get a nursing degree, come here, and be a nurse. They're completely recognized, accredited schools, but the Department of Education doesn't recognize them. So your loans are going to go into forbearance instead of deferment, and they're going to grow and grow and grow. Other schools here in the United States are some religious schools that the Department of Education does not approve. So say you go to a school, an accredited school, you take out student loans, you get a bachelor's degree in Bible, and you become a minister. And then you decide that you want to go get a master's in divinity or some other theological degree, and you go to a Christian school, a different school than what you got your bachelor's at, and it's not approved by the Department of Education. So your loans now are going to go into forbearance instead of deferment because it's not an approved school. And so those grow and grow and grow. So the student loan forgiveness that just happened, some people did benefit from that are going to pay less principal. They borrowed while they were studying. Let's say they borrowed $20,000, and they will actually end up paying back less than $20,000. But there are very, very, very few students are falling into that. Most people that are receiving student loan forgiveness, it is interest that is being forgiven. If they borrowed $20,000, when it's all said and done, they will have paid back that $20,000. The $10,000 or $20,000 forgiveness that they are receiving, it is interest that is being forgiven. And wealthy students that don't need to take out student loans, what happens is their parents pay, or however they are able to finance their education without loans, they pay whatever the school is charging, right? And so there's no interest involved. So if it was up to Dr. Linder, what would Dr. Linder's solution be? And this is getting into an area of politics, really. So, in my defense, I'll tell you this: that neither the Democrats or Republicans agree with this. So I am not jumping on the Democrat bandwagon nor the Republican bandwagon. But my position would be interest-free student loans. You give the government pays for the education, loans the student the money for the education. Student goes to school. When the student finishes school, he pays that back. Now, income driven, yes, he's going to pay back 100% of what he borrowed. But is it going to be in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years? That can be determined by the amount of money that he is earning. And if he defaults, that is, if he misses 3 payments, boom, it goes into garnishment, and the government garnishes his wages and gets that money back. That would be Dr. Shane's solution. But my point here is that not just in student loans, but all over political issues, people don't understand the issue. The politicians are flip-flopping, and they're just playing us like a fiddle. We're just puppets so that they can get more power. And that's a game I'm going to sit out. I have not voted a straight ballot in many years, and I am an active citizen. I always vote. I don't miss an election, but I never vote a straight ballot. I'm not a puppet, and they're not going to play me like a fiddle. So that's my position on politics and religion, and I think that God has a calling for us much, much higher than than civil government and then politics. And I think that we are living in the final days of Earth's history. We are seeing signs of the times that the end is coming. And I don't know if it's going to be in 5 years or 50 years, but when we consider the Earth's history, we are in the final days. Jesus is going to come back pretty soon, friends. And that's what I'm focused on.